Welcome, everyone. This is Character Fight Night Recharged.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the CFN Arena for another exciting episode of Character Fight Night Recharged, the show where your favorite fictional characters battle head-to-head in stipulation-style combat for all of our enjoyment. My name is Josh, and joining me at the desk, as always, is Jim.
Hello, everybody.
And finding his way back here is Carson.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Let that guy in.
Yeah, I found my way back here.
Yeah.
Happy to have you back.
I was lost.
We got a great night tonight. We have I don't know what we would call it. We have a fight for you.
Fight, dude.
we have a fight for you. Elemental in a way. Kind of. Well, one of them.
Elemental.
My favorite. Yeah. Oh,
It's going to be elemental.
Because you'd have to
That
be
means
mental,
crazy.
Yeah.
not to have fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yes, we have a sumo match tonight.
I forgot about that.
Is what we're calling
Yeah,
it,
that's
but
right.
it's not. But it's
I
not
love
going to be two guys in like cloths.
Yeah, we don't have just two teen boys in like cloth underwear.
But
No, that was vetoed.
very unanimously. Jim, why don't you explain the sumo stipulation?
Yeah, so a sumo fight. So basically the main goal is to try to get your opponent pushed off of the edge of the arena, essentially. And we kind of did like we did with the lumberjack match, where we kind of raised up the arena a little bit. So again, think classic Dragon Ball Z,
It's quite
Avatar.
literally like the student festival from My Hero, where it's.
I was thinking
yeah.
more of like, because that's more of just like a kind of an arena.
It is,
it's
but
not
they
like
They
can't.
can't
arena,
go
right?
out of
They
bounds.
can't go out of
Oh,
bounds.
I
That's a
forgot
big
about
part
that.
of it.
I'm a
Yeah.
little bit removed
Yeah.
from actually
Yeah.
watching the student festival stuff, so I small little details like
Well,
that.
I mean,
so.
I that's why when we decided on that stipulation, I was like, it's perfect. Like,
Yeah,
Todoroki already knows the rules.
So does that, quick question, does that mean that both of these characters can fly? So they can't occupy airspace outside of the bounds, right? That would be have to be a part of it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
yeah.
correct.
I think
We've historically we've set a limit to how high you can go before you're starting considered out of bounds and stuff
Right.
like that, just because it gets to a point of
Like, I'm not out of bounds. I'm 2 miles
I'm still
into the
in the
atmosphere.
ring. I'm just
we
up
have-
high.
we paid multiple referees to stand out like on the line
Yeah,
to look at it
yeah, right.
and make
We
horrible
have- we
calls
have,
like football
a
referees.
couple of like the fairy refs, like little fairy wings, like from Fairly
That just-
Odd Parents,
that
that
just
just like
hovering?
hover to keep it from going up too high. Yeah.
I was like, in hindsight, we probably should have done this like a cage match or something where they can't go out of bounds. But we've seen how that happens too. They just break out of the cage.
Yeah. These two typically don't fight. I don't think like they're not airborne fighters necessarily. They have the ability to fly, but that's not their.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
I think Blue Beetle's more defensive, but I'll get there when we get there. But yeah, I am very excited about this one. I don't think it's, as we always say for CFN, I don't think it's like a normal. We try to stay away from like the normal like stuff you see on the wikis and stuff. Like,
Yeah, we're not like other girls.
Yeah,
Right?
we don't need.
We're
man.
weird. We're different.
Yeah.
We're outcasts. I don't know where I was going with that.
This is what I bring to the table, Josh. Is distractions.
Carson and his derailment.
Yeah, right.
Just like,
Jesus.
where am I? So unfortunately, this is the first episode we have without Mr. Metatron. But we are holding a contest to get a new announcer. And the first contestant number 1, is standing by at the way station. So let's send it down to them to get some information on our fighters.
Stepping up to the scale, Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki weighing in at 150 pounds, standing 5 feet 9 inches tall.
All right, yeah. First on the scale, if you will, we've got Todoroki here. So I'm actually super stoked about this. One of the top students that got in through recommendation from his hero father, which we'll go into later, for Class 1A, which in the world of My Hero Academia, it means it's, the top class in...
The cream of the crop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, he's a Class 1A student, got in through official recommendations because he is the son to the number 2, now number 1 pro hero Endeavor, who is a fire-based hero. So he developed half of his father and half of his mother's abilities, which makes him half hot and half cold, which I think is super cool because you almost never see both of them in the same, in the same vein.
I think it is very cool. I want to mention, obviously,
Very cool.
some of this, also very hot. Some of this could be spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched My Hero by
But to
now,
be fair, isn't our whole show that?
yeah, I mean, you know who Todoroki is if you're listening.
Yeah.
Or
Maybe you don't, and you're not planning on watching.
He was kind of like bred to be
Yeah.
that person, which is kind of
Correct.
effed up.
They call
Yeah.
it a quirk marriage in the show, where like he specifically sought out someone who could balance out the powers.
Powers
of
are called
his-
quirks, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. No, he's just quirky.
Yeah.
He's played
so
by
silly.
Zoe Deschanel.
That's a quirk marriage if there ever was one.
Yeah, Wes Anderson and Zoe Deschanel would be a quirk marriage.
Oh, God.
So yeah, like the idea is that the cool balances the heat balances the cool. He can never overheat or like freeze.
If
because
he
he's
uses both of his powers,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So, but because of his upbringing, he grew to resent his father. And with that,
Rightfully so.
with that, yeah, exactly. And with that, it was his fire powers as well too. So historically, for a lot of the series, or at least the beginning part of the series, he only used his ice abilities to say, "Screw you, Dad."
Yeah, yeah. Big middle finger.
Yeah,
big,
right. I had censored myself like as I was trying to say it. That's why I said pause.
It's funny because, so full disclosure, I haven't seen the newest season of My Hero yet, but I'm caught up through, obviously the season before that. But it's interesting because his dad is like kind of a piece of shit, but there's like
he's going through a redemption arc.
but there's redeeming qualities. So it's like I hate you so much.
When he became the top hero, he had to really kind of turn himself around, and he started redeeming himself. He's trying to patch things with his family.
But like season 1, season 2 Endeavor was like just
there's a lot
garbage.
of damage done.
Well, because he had a chip on his shoulder,
Yeah.
too, because he was the number 2 hero. So it's he was also upset.
All these anime
Kind
are
of
like
the darker side of ambition is sort of what it is like.
I was like, all these anime that I watch are like, I can't have this, so I hate everyone.
Yeah.
So
That's
anime.
like, that's like
Yeah.
the theme. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like the anime theme. The overall arc.
So kind of a last little bit on him. He's an anime character, so there's not really too much background to go into. That's not like his whole backstory, which we kind of glanced over. But he is established as one of the strongest students in Class 1A, outside of obviously your main characters. But
Yeah. He's like top 3 for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So he's a cool dude.
To kind of parallel it for myself and some of the people listening, all 3 of us are currently watching Naruto Shippuden, and he kind of strikes me as like the Sasuke of My Hero, where he's like
just less
kinda-
shitty, yeah, because
He's like-
he still cares.
yeah,
He wouldn't,
he's
he wouldn't go full terrorist though.
he wouldn't, but I'm talking more like the quiet, enigmatic.
So you're
like,
talking like-
everybody has a crush on him.
Yeah,
like-
you're talking like Naruto, not Shippuden, like Sasuke.
yeah,
as far as I
yeah.
back when he was
Not-
like
not-
training to be a
Yeah, not overboard Sasuke.
correct, yeah. Pre-get Sasuke arc.
Yes. So Todoroki. He's He's also got that wicked like scar thing. which is
It's a
really cool.
it's a
Yeah.
burn scar.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say
A little bit of
wicked
a-
scar.
little bit of
That's
like
a
a-
burn scar.
Yeah.
Bit of like a Zuko thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know if we.
That's exactly what it
Yeah.
reminded me of, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if it like was specifically mentioned, but like the ice comes from the right side of his body, and the
Yes.
fire comes from the left side of his body. So it's
That
not
is
like
correct.
he's not changing back and forth. It is literally like half and half. I
Like
don't know if that'll
he
come
has
into
to be able to.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's
I don't know if you
no,
could
it's interesting
subdue
that you
half
bring
of
it up
somebody.
just because it's so different
Yeah.
from what everything else does. Usually, it's like if you have
Mm-hmm.
half of this and half of this, like you have a slightly weakened version, but you don't have like limitations of like I can only use fire from one hand
Yeah,
or ice from the other hand. It's like usually like yeah. So it's a really cool comparison
and
and
it,
like,
it,
difference.
it really causes some really awesome like animation
I've
moments.
got. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've like read through like the list
Yeah.
of the abilities that I put down in here, but like as you start to get down in some of the other ones,
Yeah.
it like really does to kind of show like his dual use of both of the powers.
Yeah,
which
like
is
he's
cool.
really good at like using them in tandem and switching back and forth. Is like
And he learned quick, so he's a quick
Yeah.
learner, which kind of plays into him being like one of the top students in 1A because he's a, he had a kind of a quick mastery over his fire side.
like him and the
for
student
not using it for most of his childhood, like
Right.
after he developed his quirk.
Yeah.
him in the like student festival versus Midoriya, who's the main character, is like one of the coolest, most beautifully animated fights that I can think of. It's like
In that
Totally
show,
agree,
yeah,
totally agree.
absolutely.
So that's gonna kind of round out the weigh-in information on Todoroki. So with that, we're gonna send it down to contestant number 2, who's gonna throw the weigh-in for our next competitor.
Stepping up to the scale, Jaime Reyes. Jaime weighs in at, weighs in at an average teenage weight and stands at a average teenage height.
So Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, who is getting his own live-action movie here this year.
starring that dude from Cobra Kai.
Yes. I haven't seen Cobra Kai.
Me neither.
I heard
He's
good.
he's
Yeah.
great. in Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
actually
heard
very
he's-
excited
yeah.
for him to be a superhero.
One of the videos that I watched as research for this actually mentioned that. Is like, everybody loved him in Cobra Kai, so we're really excited to see him in Blue Beetle. It's like, okay, that's good.
Miguel, best character in the show.
I mean, it's good that you're. Well, like, first of all, you're not Amber Heard. And second of all, people actually like you, so that's good. Originally created by Keith Giffen, John Rogers, and Cully Hamner.
That does say Hamner. Oh my god!
does say
I was
Hamner.
like, I just thought it was like you were.
Cully Hammer?
Yeah.
No, that's a weapon that he uses. The Cully Hammer. But fun fact, Keith Giffen is actually also the creator of Lobo, DC's favorite
Favorite? Yeah.
mercenary,
Bounty hunter.
bounty hunter,
Bounty
yeah.
hunter, space bounty hunter.
Space bounty hunter,
Dude, he's so cool.
all powerful space bounty hunter,
He is absolutely.
and Rocket Raccoon, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that they were all created kind of at the same time, the Guardians, but apparently not. Originally from El Paso, Texas, which
Whoop whoop.
one of us
Represent.
from here is from El Paso. I'm assuming it's not you, Carson,
How
because
did
you're
you
looking at me.
know? How did you know? Is it my
Yeah,
accent?
that's actually like one of the coolest things because I'm not. I wasn't born in El Paso, but I definitely grew up there. I spent like the majority of my life there. It was just really cool to have somebody from like a famous superhero like this from my hometown that it's not a place that gets a ton of recognition outside of like shows about drug lords and drug trafficking.
cartel.
And so it's not to say that El Paso is like big on, but it's a border city. So,
So I
that's
was
why
going to
it's
say,
very,
like, I mean, at least to our knowledge, Jaime could be a drug dealer.
He
don't
could.
know. On
He'd
the
be
side,
really
like,
good at it.
absolutely.
His
With the
side
Beetle.
Beetle
Yeah. Yeah.
Any
Flying
superhero
around?
would be a great drug dealer.
Oof.
I'm waiting for that dark
Yeah.
arc.
That went.
Like Superman could be making a ton of money if he weren't such a good guy.
Yeah. If you weren't such a good guy.
Working at the Daily Planet like
Yeah.
a loser.
Yeah. My alter ego is drug dealer. No one would expect me to be a superhero.
He like fights crime during the day, but then commits crime at night.
Yeah. It's how you weigh the scales. Like
It's
you even out the
perfect
scales. Yeah.
disguise.
So going back to Jaime, our Blue Beetle, The reason that he is the Blue Beetle is because he has a scarab. They call it the scarab, which fused to his spine,
Yeah.
which is really
An
interesting.
alien entity that was dubbed the scarab because it looks, well, like a scarab. Yeah. Ooh.
Which, to dive into the history of the scarab, actually, I learned this on the way over here, actually. The scarab belongs to a race called the Reach, which is an intergalactic
From Halo.
alien
yes.
race.
From Halo.
No. The Reach is actually the second oldest race in the DC universe.
Interesting. Do you think if Blue Beetle was a Marvel character, he'd be Beetle Man?
He'd be Blue Beetle Man.
No, because it's not like Red Spider Man.
And it would be, well, it would be, that would be his disguise. His first name is Blue, and then his last name is Beetleman.
Beetleman?
And he doesn't
Mild
like,
Man or Blue Beetleman?
it's just him in the full suit, but also with like a regular suit over top.
You turn around, the Beetle's wearing a tie.
He's wearing glasses, and everyone's like, Blue Beetle doesn't wear glasses.
It's like, I'll be right back. And like runs around the corner and takes off his glasses. Blue Beetle, where were you?
I hate it here.
So the Reach had some kind of agreement where they wouldn't invade the universe. So they sent the scarab out to do their bidding, and what it would do is it would find the planet that it got to, would find the most dominant species or person or thing on the planet and fuse to that thing. So what happened was it went to this planet. It wasn't really a planet, it was like a space station. And it fused to this little girl, and the little girl was insane, like insane. And so the design of it was supposed to control the person that it fused with.
Okay.
Because the girl was so crazy, the scarab was like, screw this, I'm out of here. So it actually escaped and opened up like this portal and ended up on Earth.
Yeah.
And it fused to someone that like some tribe like millions of years ago.
Okay.
And so over the years, it's been, doing all these, going through all of these people, and it ended up with Jaime. And so
Just arbitrarily?
he stumbled across it somehow.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
he
Okay.
stumbled across it. And because it escaped from that alien girl, it lost its ability to control the person.
Oh.
So he gets the abilities of the scarab, but it can't like physically control him.
Okay.
Right? It's kind of supposed to be like a loophole in whatever their thing is, where it's like you can't do conquest, but you can, if you're invited to a planet, you can be. So if they control someone to invite them to the planet or whatever, I think that's kind of the workaround.
Yeah. First appearing in Infinite Crisis number 3 in 2006. Interesting about that, or what's interesting about that, is that issue actually retconned the whole Blue Beetle origin into what I just told you guys. Before that,
Classic DC, dude.
classic DC. Yeah.
Just take
Which-
everything that they did before. and
Scrap
just
it.
Yeah.
The Blue Beetle, the first Blue Beetle was like a guy who dressed in a suit, much like Batman, and
He
called
had his
himself
own
the Blue Beetle.
inventions and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then the second guy, Ted Cord, was an inventor, and he, I think he invented the scarab and used it. But then when they retconned it, it was
Or he like
the alien.
He didn't put it on, but he used it to build
that what- okay.
like technology. So he could have like a ray gun that was like scarab powered or something, but he didn't have it attached to his spine.
And then in the Rebirth one, Ted Cord is actually Jaime's mentor. Like he
Oh,
seeks Ted
okay,
Cord
cool.
out, and
So basically, we're seeing the best iteration
Yeah.
right now of
Yeah.
Blue Beetle. Yeah.
other than that, that's pretty much the background on Jaime Reyes.
I got a couple of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Please.
Yeah.
I did some research.
I mean,
That was a wild thing I just watched unfold between you guys.
That was the worst fight we've ever had.
I'm sorry that we had to do that.
It's okay. I can work towards forgiving you. Blue Beetle is known for his distinctive blue and black patterning, right? His Latin name is Gibbifer californicus. He's native to Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Kansas, and the Mexican state of Sonora.
Wait,
and,
who is?
He typically feeds on conch
beetle?
fungus in logs and Oh no, I'm seeing this is the blue fungus beetle, guys. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong wiki. This is just a real beetle. I'm sorry, guys.
God, you got. I was like, what do you mean? We just talked about him being from El Paso.
I was like,
Sorry.
I'm gonna see where this goes.
yeah, he just tried to retcon the whole
blue,
like,
the blue fungus beetle.
Oh.
It's like
That's my bad.
It's like the blue beetle
That was
equivalent.
very brilliantly done, by the way. I commend you, sir.
That's like the blue beetle equivalent of like being rickrolled. we just got beetled.
Yeah, you just learned some facts, dude.
yeah.
One more fun fact before we move on from Blue Beetle is the original Dan Garrett, the original Blue Beetle, used to say Kage Da to turn into the Blue Beetle. And the name of the scarab is Kage Da. So it's kind of like a...
Shazam.
It's like a Shazam.
That was immediately where I went to. Like,
but
Shazam.
It's just a neat like callback to Blue Beetle's original origins.
Gotcha.
I thought that was kind of neat.
You had me in suspense for the fact.
Yeah, that was it. So with that, we're going to, I guess, take a commercial break, and then we'll be right back with the fight, the event of the evening.
Do your kids seem different? Levitating things, breathing fire, shape-shifting? Come check out UA High School. What's the worst that can happen if you put a bunch of kids together with superpowers? Come find out at UA High. Want to fight bad guys? Or do you just want to be the bad guy? Choose your path with UA High. Enroll now.
Welcome back to the CFN Arena after that small commercial break, and we are now ready to introduce tonight's fighters officially. And to do that, we have contestant number 3 standing by in the ring. Let's send it down to them. Don't mess it up.
Introducing first. Who's first? Oh, the guy from My Hero, Todoroki. And his opponents, the blue guy, not Blue Man Group. Oh, sorry guys. Blue Beetle.
So round 1, Oakley did not like that bell.
Which is weird because he doesn't have headphones on.
Sensitive for his dog ears.
I know, right?
So round 1, we're going to dive into Shoto Todoroki, the half fire, half ice from My Hero Academia. Jim,
Yeah.
what does Todoroki bring to the table
Todoroki. All right.
besides fire and ice?
He's got quite a bit actually here. There's a whole big list. I'm not going to go. Yeah, charisma. So
Actually,
charismatic.
he's very not charismatic.
Exactly. I mean, so like obviously I'm not going to go into every single like power that I have listed off here, but I think like obviously he's got control over half hot, half cold. So, I think I have it on one of them here. I put too much information in here because it's hard to like.
TMI.
Ice from his right side and fire from his left, to be specific. So, obviously he has the ability to shoot fire and ice. And for a long part of this show, he was only using his ice since he resented his father and the fire side of himself. But with that being said, I don't think one of his weaknesses is going to come into play here, which is if he uses one of his sides too much. then it really starts to mess with him.
Yeah.
So it's like if he uses, we've seen it at like the Hero Festival and stuff like that. If he uses his ice too much, it starts to dangerously lower his body temperature to like super dangerous levels. I'm going to say dangerous again because I can, but
I disagree.
what do you mean?
I think that, not to start off with, here's Todoroki's weaknesses, but he is a young kid. He's very like emotionally unstable, and that's kind of one of his arcs, is like gaining control of his emotions and like not hating his dad and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that if Jaime is able to push him far enough, I think there is a chance he could overuse one of his sides.
You think so? Because I think he's gotten to a point now because he has used both of them. This isn't like season one,
I know.
Hero Festival, like Todoroki. But I mean, I see what you're saying though. But he's got he's got a few like ultimate moves, is what they're called here, and a few of them is like phosphor, to be specific, where he circulates and merges both his fire and ice, which he then uses as special attacks.
Hot
and stuff
ice?
like that. Correct.
Water.
Phosphor. Yeah. But no, like just specifically stuff like he's got like, it's called Cold Flame's Pale Blade, which is probably one of my favorite names of his attacks in this. But he like literally throws a piece of that conjoined fire and ice. And when he launches it at an enemy, it like explodes and it creates this like...
Yeah, and he can, like, one of the things that he does that's really like visually cool is he can, like, say, use his eyesight to like kind of cool the temperature of the area by like a lot, so it's like frigid, and then introduce that heat that creates like a vortex
Flash
of
freeze,
like
heat wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what that one's called.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. That's pretty sick.
Flash freeze, heat wave, cools air around him with ice and rapidly heats and expands the air, which releases a superheated blast. So he has, I think, enough control at this point of both his fire and his ice, and used in conjunction with each other, that I don't think he's going to get to those critical levels.
And there's moments in the show where like he's using his fire side a lot, to fight like maybe like a fire villain or something like that, and you can tell that he's overheating, and he just does like a quick like ice up, break. Okay, I've cooled myself back to like regulation.
And I think vice versa
Room
with the
temperature.
ice.
Yeah, it's like, I feel nothing.
Yeah.
That must be really convenient, like for the summer. It's like, man, it's hot out here. Cool down.
Or like the winter time, you're like, man, it's really cold.
Let's go camping. You can make us camp.
And I mean, to bring up to counter your point, Josh, and to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying before too, as you were talking
Okay.
about, I'm going in on this one. No, I'm just kidding. You were talking about how if Blue Beetle can push him to that point of contention of like, overusing one of his powers, you have to talk. I'm going to say it here. It's one of my favorites. It's caliber of enemies. Caliber of enemies.
Caliber of clothes. That's what you're going to say. But
Caliber of enemies. I already said it. But no, I mean, dude, he like literally fights other superpower dudes. Like, he's in a school where he's learning how to master and control his powers, like learning from pro superheroes. And, you have like these like
His number one hero father.
Yeah, correct. So
The
it's
ultimate
like,
enemy.
I mean, I feel like has learned and is freshly learned how to like, but at the same time, he is also a teenager.
I was going to say, he is still like 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But
you
he's a
can
smart dude,
be-
though. He's top of his class.
He is, but you can be extremely intelligent, extremely agile, strong, but your brain doesn't finish developing until you're like 23 or
Yeah.
28 or something
Yeah.
like that, right? So this is not a neurology
But that also
podcast.
applies. That also applies.
Do you remember when we
Jaime.
did that?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And I was going to cover that, but since we're on the topic of Todoroki, that's kind of one of the, and I don't want to discount him. He's extremely strong. He's extremely agile. He's super tactful, which is huge. We've talked about that in multiple episodes now.
Yeah.
But, I want to, because we've covered a lot of anime characters over the course of the show, that sometimes they're like godlike, like they're unbeatable or they're almost impossible to beat. And I just wanted to kind of bring a little human element to Todoroki and show like he is still a human boy with a quirk.
Yeah, he's sort of like a street level in terms of like like, you know, how you can rank heroes based on like, you know, caliber of enemies or whatever. But he is sort of street level, right? Like you see him fighting not for the universe, but like for a district in Japan, you know, like, not necessarily like out there doing cosmic things, but, you know, more of on a smaller scale, doing hero work.
So he's like not Superman, like I need to save the world,
or other anime, like you were saying, just, you know, godlike anime characters that are out there.
He's no All Might.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
he's no Goku.
specific to the
thankfully
sumo fight, though, I think his ice power specifically will come into play a lot.
Ooh,
because
you're right.
being able to occupy like a lot of space with like the huge amounts of like ice walls and spikes and stuff that you can create, I think will be beneficial towards the specific stipulations of pushing Jaime out of
or
the
back.
ring.
Yeah, correct.
I was going to say on the other side of that, not to be, I guess I'm the opposite guy today, but looking at that, he's able to create ice walls. And so let's say he gets in a situation where he gets pushed back, he can throw up that ice wall behind him to keep him from going out of the
Right, which he does, a
line.
couple times in the...
Yeah. But here's another thing too, is like one of his I'm usually pretty serious when I'm putting like my stuff in my notes and everything on here, but it's like every so often I like to throw that little thing in here. So one of his issues I have in here is daddy issues, or not issue, one of his weaknesses. So it's like you absolutely know, like, this is a serious fight. Endeavor showed up to a lot of his.
He's going to be there in the audience.
He's going to be there in the audience, and he's going to be trying to get Todoroki to. Todoroki still hasn't completely patched everything up.
Shoto.
Yeah, with his father. So there's still some resentment there. Like, things are getting better, but he's definitely mastered and learned how to use both his fire and his eyesight in conjunction a little bit. But I think his presence of his father might kind of throw him a little bit.
It could be, yeah.
Kind of playing into what you were talking about, of like his kind of teenage. He still does have that teenage mind. He's intelligent but not wise. He doesn't have like this necessarily like the ability to fully control his emotions, and he does kind of have an inherent ability to underestimate his opponents and stuff like that.
He's an angsty teenager.
Correct.
Right? So
exactly.
Angsty teenagers make bad decisions.
Yeah.
But great fighters.
Great fighters, yes. But all it takes is one small mistake.
Especially here.
Could cost him.
Because all it does is like you just got to get him just knocked out of the ring.
He's very cautious as a fighter. So I don't know. It seems to me that like Jaime would really have to know what makes him tick to be like, your dad abused your mom. Like,
to really get into his head. How do you know this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim brought up a really good point with the fact that he can be full of himself and he can tend to like underestimate his opponents. So I think that's a big thing that he would have to overcome, or something that he would just have to realize and not do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're talking about, like, I will dive into more of this with the fight, but you're talking about he lives in a world with all these people who have superpowers, and he's dealt with all these people. He's never dealt with alien technology.
Correct. As far as
we know.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
so
there's
far.
There's no real alien element.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, spoilers, aliens don't show up.
But some of the people look like aliens.
Yes.
Yeah. Fat Gum. Dude, Fat Gum's one of my favorite.
I love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add for Todoroki?
No, a lot of the stuff I really want to start talking about, and there's a ton of stuff that we can go into, like some of his other abilities. You kind of mentioned his enhanced agility, his enhanced stamina, and his enhanced durability. I mean, he can withstand multiple attacks from Deku, who's like the main protagonist of the show.
He's the Naruto of the show.
Exactly, absolutely. Like, I kind of want to play into his strengths a little bit, just as kind of a final note here, but on his enhanced agility, he's able to like keep first place in like the sports festival when they did that on his own athletic abilities. He didn't rely on his quirks or anything like that, which I think is huge. Is huge because like that's bringing in his own inherent nature. Then like a trained quirk ability, like a trained superpower ability.
Yeah, that was a good thing to end on. I know we have plenty more to cover with Todoroki,
Oh, he's got a ton of powers.
and I'm sure we'll dive into it with the fight. But for now, we have to go to round 2, and we have to give our second competitor, Mr. Beetle. We always do that. I always do that.
No, please call me Blue.
Mr. Beetle was my father. Call me Fungus.
We gotta get a shirt that says Mr. Beetle was my father.
Mr.
No,
Blank.
if we do the shirt, it's got to be Mr. Inevitable. Like
Mr. Inevitable, yeah.
Please call me. Yeah.
Please call me
Or,
Inevitable.
like, please, like Mr. Thanos is my father. Call me Inevitable.
So I think Blue Beetle does need time.
Yeah.
So let's not waste any of that and get right over to round 2. So Jaime Reyes has take away his armor and his scarab, and he's just a kid. But
Sick skateboarder.
but he cannot get rid of the scarab because he would die. It is fused to his spine.
It
So
would kill him.
An inherent problem in its own. Yeah. A weakness, if you will.
probably one of his weaknesses, yes.
Yes, we'll just target the strongest part of him.
But one thing I wanted to bring up from the last round is Carson, you brought up that Jaime would have to know like what Todoroki's weaknesses and stuff are. And I think that the scarab is able to analyze his opponents.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think to like a mental
Like, I was
level.
gonna say, yeah, like a
Like read
a
his thoughts,
psychological.
like, yeah.
Because it's so like cold
But-
and calculating, like, yeah, I feel like it could pick up on emotional turmoil or whatever and be like, exploit that.
It would just be like I think it would be on the level of like brainwave activity, like in
Yeah.
a way where it's like, okay, clearly there's something misfiring,
Yeah.
where it's like, you know,
Opponent has heightened hormone activity.
yeah, like something exactly. Like no, that's what, like you
Legit,
kind of
yeah.
say it as like a
Has
joke,
daddy
but like
issues.
that's kind of yeah, like that's what the
Seems
brainwave
to
scan
react
says.
to
It's like,
this audience
beep,
member.
beep, beep, beep,
Talk
beep, beep,
about
daddy
his
issues,
dad.
beep, beep, yeah. No, but yeah, it's absolutely like
Talk smack.
I think that does bring up an interesting point of being able to like use the analytics to figure out like, hey,
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, and not even just the analytics from
neutralize
like
one side of his body and you can
I was gonna say not even analytics for like, hey, tell him his dad sucks.
Oh, yeah.
It's the
Recognizing
analytics from
patterns.
everything. Like this
Yeah.
thing is genius. Alien technology in comics is
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a huge advantage to not having to do that yourself, but having an alien supercomputer feed you information that you
Right.
can then use to fight.
yeah.
I think the only drawback to that is that he's not always able to control the scarab.
Right.
And
It's
so
a pretty glaring like weakness as well too that
It
it
is.
needs to
Usually-
be touched early.
Usually the scarab is like pushing for lethal force.
He's holding back.
And so-
in this
So
case, are we?
that also
is he going to be
takes-
holding back?
That's
or-
actually one of the weaknesses that I put down on his doc is that the suit doesn't stop. He can't stop the suit from killing. However, I don't really see. I mean, I think they've worked in tandem enough that he could convince the scarab to not use lethal force.
That brings up another like great like aspect of this too is you have to think that takes away some of his mental capacity for like the fight, like being in the fight and thinking an attack fight because he's having to hold back the suit. He's having to
Yeah.
argue with the suit
I agree.
essentially. So his head can never be fully in the game, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think a big advantage he has is that his dad actually likes him and he likes his dad. So if his
Yeah.
dad's in the audience, he's gonna be
it
like, "Go
depends,
Jaime!"
like,
He's like,
yeah.
"Yeah, dad."
Go
It
son.
depends
Yeah.
if like I know like in
and
like
then
the
Shoto sees that and is like, you guys. Dang it. Shoto sees that and is like, screw you guys.
but like
We could have had that, dad.
in the DC animated movies, there is a contention point between like between Jaime Reyes and his father.
Yeah, well, his dad is obviously worried for his son's like safety and stuff, and he's like,
because he's like,
I
Dad, like I want to be here, like because I like
Jaime's also worried for his dad's safety because he knows that the Beetle won't hesitate to kill his
That's
dad.
true. That
and
is
I
true.
think that's like kind of a contention point. So it's
and
like
we should be worried about all the
they're fine.
audience
They signed a
members.
waiver. They have to sign a waiver. They know the risks.
Jim has passed the point of caring about the audience.
Yeah, I don't, dude. It's just easier to like let the Beetle just do its thing, like
You knew what you were walking into.
Yeah.
So some of the strengths that I find with Blue Beetle, he is able to kind of morph his hands into different weapons, from sonic cannons, which are like energy weapons, which are really, really cool, to swords and all kind of like melee
Blades.
weapons and stuff.
My favorite is like the staple gun.
I was just looking at that on here. It was like a staple gun.
He like shoots. This happens a lot in Young Justice, and I think it's probably just like as a non-lethal way for him to fight. But he like shoots giant staples that like pins enemies to the wall.
Yeah.
And the Scarab's always like, this tactic would be more effective if he went for their bones.
Which here would be very not good for him because he
Right.
doesn't want to
wanna
shoot
pin
and
him.
pin, like unless he does it to the ground. But
Unless he does it
actually,
outside of the ring.
that was and it kind of shoots it down
Launches
instead of
him.
like towards because I mean he does have kind of a flight ability, which they both do. That's something we didn't really talk too much about Todoroki, was like they do kind of have somewhat of a
he
flight
has kind of like
ability.
an Iceman,
Correct.
like skate around on
Or
ice.
has like his fire too. I think he can like propel himself with like the fire and like almost like a jet engine. But
Blue Beetle definitely has air superiority, though.
Yeah, he does.
Of
But
the two of them.
I don't think that either of these are going to be. They're not.
Yeah, get back down here.
They're not air reliant fighting.
Yeah.
like they use it's more air support.
And that's what I was saying in the very beginning of the episode, is I think that if Blue Beetle were to use his flying ability, I think it would be more in a defensive manner than it would be offensively.
Yeah.
It's like, Todoroki's getting he's got
Not
the
to
upper
get
hand.
hit
Let me,
by
let me
some
fly.
ice, yeah.
Yeah, I think same with both sides, where it's like they use it more of to get out of the way, if they need to get out of the way of an attack, but less.
I kind of see Todoroki more like hunkering down for the fight.
Yeah.
And Blue Beetle using mobility to try to get the upper hand.
Absolutely, I agree.
So it's like a beetle trying to land on its prey.
Yeah. Fungus.
Fungus among us.
Stop.
I mean, so we talked about caliber of enemies with Todoroki. Let's talk about it with Blue Beetle.
Superpowered dudes,
Superpower dudes, but you have to think Captain Cold,
dude. He took on the Justice League.
Heat Wave,
He helped take on the Justice League, which
the Justice League.
is I get what you're saying. I get what the whole
Specifically, but
the fire and the ice thing. I'm
Yeah.
more talking about level of caliber of enemies.
Yeah.
Where it's the Justice League is your top dog. Dude, these are
But did they win?
yeah.
Oh, they did.
in Teen Titans versus the Justice League.
Oh, well, yeah.
But they were all being mind controlled, so they probably weren't at the top
Yeah,
of
but
their
still,
game.
but
still.
either way though, I mean, Superman
Yeah.
has heat vision, fire,
that is
and
true.
freeze breath.
And he can
freeze breath,
Yeah, and he can
cold,
freeze.
yeah.
So he's
But anyway, I get what
basically
you're saying, yeah,
That
Todoroki.
is fair, yeah.
Yeah, but he has
My point is he's dealt with someone like this before, but not necessarily in the coming from the same person.
Yeah, but that's
Except for Superman,
also
but-
where it brings up another interesting fact, because these two people specifically that you mentioned are using cold to their full effect, versus I think someone like Todoroki, who may not necessarily be able to use them both to their full effect.
So if he uses them both at the same time, they'd be weakened, like a weakened state.
Well, I don't know, because I mean,
I
I think,
think
some of their
actually-
powers are they at their
We're-
full effect. I know we were talking about their
Yeah.
their powers and stuff
Well,
together.
he
It was
can he can do some pretty insane stuff with
Yeah.
both of them. And then we were talking about how he can kind of use them in tandem for combo moves
but
and stuff.
if say something like Blue Beetle were to, and this is something we can explore a little bit more, were to hinder one of his sides, then it's you
Yeah.
inherently kind of take out some of his use of his
one of
ability.
the elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus somebody like Captain Cold, or somebody who uses this power specifically. If you knock out one of their arms, they still have their same,
weapon, yeah.
their same level of ability. Versus that's kind of a inherent weakness on Todoroki is If he loses the use of one of his sides, then
That's a really interesting point. I mean, Captain Cold, you also have to think like he uses
Captain
a gun.
Cold is probably a bad example because he's like not like a
I was
great.
going to say you could like knock his gun out of his hand and he's like, I can't shoot ice anymore.
But I know what you're trying to say. Captain Cold was just our like go-to for like, hey, ice powers.
But I mean, you're also talking like, last thing that I'll say before we round it out is he was trained, like being in the Teen Titans. He's also trained by the Justice League.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like his ability, his tactfulness, his strength.
Yeah. He spends every day getting his ass kicked by Starfire.
Yeah.
Who is also an alien.
Yeah.
It's just out of this world. I'll be here all night.
At this rate.
This is my last episode of being rid off the show. With that, we've heard from Todoroki. We've heard from Blue Beetle. Now let's throw them in the arena together and see who comes out on top. This is round 3. So we have them both in the arena now. We kind of talked about their strengths and weaknesses and how they play for each other, but let's see how they play when they're in the ring, play off of each other.
Well, I think Blue Beetle's sonic weapons are going to be pretty effective against the massive ice structures, if I had to guess.
That is a good
like,
point, yes.
I would think that, like, when we see Todoroki fighting Midoriya and he's like using kind of air pressure sonic blasts to sort of like break up the ice.
Right,
Yeah.
Like,
And his fingers.
he does,
back when he was breaking his hands.
yeah, Blue Beetle can do that without breaking his fingers. So,
Big advantage.
yeah. So it seems like that would just be like an effective sort of almost like a stalemate of like ice, sonic energy, ice, sonic energy.
So I think that's where the fire is going to come in because like that's going to be his biggest offensive is the use of fire, and more specifically, like we talked about, like the flash freeze heat wave, where it creates like that superheated blast, where it's like Blue Beetles, because like you're not like ice, you can be like it's ice, it may be kind of cold to the touch or whatever, but it's like, dude, fire will sucks immediately, like what I mean. So it's like he's going to be trying to stay away from
pushing
any of those
force is like really
correct.
He's,
It will, however, I think the suit can make some kind of defense against that like explosion and that force.
This is
and kind
true,
of ground
but
him in that spot.
Yeah, I can imagine just like him morphing his feet into like
I'm more like,
or even his like hand swords, he could just jab them into the ground.
I'm less talking about specifically like the blast waves and stuff like that, and more of like the heat of and like the burning nature of fire and stuff like that. And like regardless of the suit, because it's like, again, talking about caliber of enemies and stuff that they fought, like yes, you have like this protective suit on, but you still have a flight or fight response.
Yeah.
And like that's something that's going to
But
trigger.
will the scarab let him flight?
Well, it's just enough to get away from like, because it's like you're still not going to want to get hit by a heat blast.
Not to mention the suit's probably like pretty darn fireproof, but everything has a limit, and Todoroki can create like a lot of very intense heat.
Correct. So you're still gonna want to be, because you don't want to test that. Yeah. You don't want to find out exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, let me find out what the limit is, and then like next thing you know, like you're losing. It's like, no, you're gonna want to keep getting away from the
That's
fire.
my limit right there.
Todoroki also just has that shonen anime drive where he's like, I will not be beaten.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so Jaime's like, I also won't.
He's like, I gotta go to school tomorrow, so like I gotta survive.
Todoroki's like, I do too, but learn how to use my powers.
I love my dad. I want to see him again.
But that's exactly what I'm getting at, though. Is like, that fight or flight response to get away from Todoroki's like use of his fire and stuff like that, which I think may also play into like, because they're gonna
so bad now. I'm just taking dad jabs at Todoroki.
Yeah.
They're going to learn a lot about each other and each other's fighting styles as they go. So I think Todoroki is going to quickly learn the use of his fire is going to be the bigger threat to Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
And inherently the Blue Beetle is going to recognize that and start to see that, hey, he's using a lot of this. How do we counter this? That's where you start to take out one of his sides. So it's like, now you take out his arm, you focus his arm so he can't use his fire ability.
That's where that staple could like...
Correct. Correct.
Do you
Staple
agree
gun, baby.
that Todoroki would use ice defensively and fire offensively.
Yes.
Like
when he's
is
not
that-
using
does that
like the
make
powers.
sense?
Sometimes, I mean,
Like
I
in this
like-
instance, like enough.
with-
I know
like
he throws up firewalls to get away,
Yeah.
or ice walls to get away.
Or to wrap
well, I
enemies or
mean,
surround enemies and stuff.
like I mentioned earlier, like he uses that ice to kind of fill up the space, and it's a very like strong pushing force. So he can like be shooting ice spikes from like different angles, distracting you, so you're focused on that, and then coming at you with some fire or something like that. So I feel like it's both defensive and offensive, but it is a very good means of him preventing himself from getting pushed out of the ring, because he can create like barriers behind him.
What if he like threw up an ice wall and then accidentally melted it with his fire?
So that's
the flash
I mean,
fire.
that's actually so going into that. Like a lot of his moveset is the use of that exact thing of ice as defense and fire as offense. So he has like, he does his heaven piercing ice wall. That's you were talking about like the glacier size like ice walls that he
massive.
throws up.
Yeah.
But his actual offensive attacks are his flash fire fists, Hell Spider, which is kind of one of the where he creates little beams of fire from his fingertips that like can cut through stuff. Jet kindling, or which is like a white hot punch essentially. So like he's using a lot of his
He
fire.
would definitely feel that through the armor.
Correct.
you know?
He would be using a lot of that on the offensive, and then the ice is very defensive. So with the Blue Beetle being able to scan and kind of recognize those patterns, is I think going to be able to easily pick up on these patterns that Todoroki's throwing down, because it's very much like, think of it like a planned out D&D like fight. You know what I mean? When you have like your turn order, chances are there's probably going to be some sort of turn order when it comes to how Todoroki is using his powers.
He's pretty methodical.
Yeah.
So it's often the same thing, like reapplied to different opponents.
Whereas like I think Blue Beetle, and with his not just his caliber of enemies, but his sparring partners and stuff, because you have to think who is he a team with? Robin.
Yeah.
Starfire, Raven, Beast Boy. Dude, Beast Boy alone, dude. Like Robin and Beast Boy are two, like they're so sporadic fighters. Like, you know, like they don't have like a certain like way to do it. So like Blue Beetle, somebody who has to be constantly on his toes when it comes to fighting. And I don't think Todoroki is going to be in that same.
What do we think is his big move to get Todoroki out of the ring? Because we kind of talked about like what Todoroki might do to get Blue Beetle out, but what's Blue Beetle doing to like finish the match?
My first thought, which is not my real reason, transforming his hand to a giant fan.
I just blowing him out. Jesus. Yeah.
You might be a firebender and an icebender, but have you ever fought an airbender?
And I'm not talking like a fan like with blades. I'm talking like the Asian fan that you like. Like the katana fan.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think that really utilizing his. So one thing that I learned is that Kajeda, the scarab, is actually a learning thing. So as he fights Todoroki,
like the Omnidroid from The Incredibles. I'm sorry, that was like such a weird.
Jim stays in left field until he needs to come out and just say something.
But he's not wrong.
Yes, like the Omnidroid from The Incredibles. It is a learning AI. But what that means is that the longer that Blue Beetle fights Todoroki,
it's better.
The scarab is going to learn. And we talked about how already tactful the Blue Beetle, the scarab is.
Yeah.
It's just going to be more and more reading his moves and learning his abilities and stuff like that. I think that that's going to be a big advantage. I think that airspace is going to be a big advantage. I think that if Todoroki's, shooting fire, with fire comes smoke, which he's not able to see for a short time, he's able to take to the air and get the advantage. I think that would be his best move.
Because he's not getting disoriented in anything. Like he can definitely have like a beat on Todoroki the entire time.
Yeah.
And he's very fast. Like
I think
speed advantage is huge too.
It's so crazy to think, because like exactly how much of like Jaime's like abilities, like agility and stuff like that, comes from use of the Beetle.
Yeah.
Versus like Todoroki has such a natural agility and like a natural stamina and stuff like that I think he brings to the table. I think something we cannot look past right now when we're talking about all this stuff, and I think something that Todoroki may end up recognizing if he sees it, is the lack of what's the best way to, like the lack of working together, I guess. Like the fact
Beetle?
that the fact that like the Beetle
Yeah.
and Jaime cannot.
Yeah, I think we touched on it in the beginning is like he doesn't have complete control over the suit, right?
Correct.
So he may have
Sort of.
plans for one thing,
And the Beetle
suit's
may
like,
have
no, I know
another.
better than that.
And if
We'll
there's
do this."
enough of an opening, all it takes is just like, a single jet kindling or like a single like flash fire fist
Yeah.
where it's like that's enough to push Blue Beetle.
No, I think specifically with how it's set up, I don't think the Scarab can like actually control the suit. He's more just like making suggestions.
Okay.
And then Jaime's like arguing back with that, which is like still creating discord and stuff, but it's not like he's literally going to be like, I want to go left, but it's better to go right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm
No,
stuck.
it doesn't control him in that way, but I have seen it like create like like his blast gun or something
Going
like that. And he's
back
like,
to
no, like don't
Yeah.
don't shoot that person.
Justice
right?
League,
totally
Justice League
right.
versus
You're
Teen
totally
Titans.
right,
He almost
yeah.
killed Damian Wayne when they were just sparring with each other because they got
He
out of
has to
hand.
maintain control.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's-
It got out of hand,
totally.
and Blue Beetle took over, or the Scarab took over, and almost killed Damian Wayne in the movie. Like and so it's exactly that. So I think if there's just enough of an opening, Todoroki is smart enough to recognize something like that.
Yeah. Not to mention Jaime can't, for whatever reason, have these conversations in his head. He's always yelling out loud. People are just like, who are you talking to?
He is like the DC anime character.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he should just be yelling out his moves. He's
Yeah.
like sword hand.
I thought that was an interesting part of. And like it's so funny because I've been watching a lot of Naruto lately, and they do exactly that.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they say their
Rasengan.
like, Rasengan or Shadow Clone Jutsu. It's like, and you're not expecting a Shadow Clone, like
Yeah. No, what always gets me in Naruto is like anytime I ever hit someone, I would immediately assume that's a substitution jutsu.
I know, right?
Because
Yeah,
they're
every
always like,
time.
they're always surprised.
so surprised.
It's like poof, log.
But it's
They're like,
how
what? A
many people know-
substitution jutsu? Like,
At
of
this
course.
point, at
Of
this
course
point,
it is.
everybody knows that.
It
Everybody
always
knows
is.
substitution.
but not in this fight. So my
Yeah.
question is,
Todoroki uses a substitution jutsu, and you're like, come on.
do you think it's something as simple as Todoroki just encases Jaime in ice? Like I
No,
don't,
because then he can't win that way.
right, but he could incapacitate him long enough to come up with a strategy, or
I
like
don't know if that would incapacitate him for very long. Because like we said,
But it
he's
was
probably
fine
good
to
at
just
break
breaking
out.
out.
Yeah.
But he's smart enough to where it by maybe another minute
Yeah.
or so of like being able to like
Yeah.
it's
Enough to get that
fights like
tactic.
this,
Like-
in fights like this every second counts. So
Yeah.
if you get even like a second or two of like to take a breath, like you encase him in ice, that gives you just a second to think, and then you're in the
Yeah,
battle.
I think he's also good at like Todoroki's also good at like making you split your focus of like having attacks coming from like the ground and the air and being
Yeah.
like, what's the main attack and what's the one that you're expecting to like land and what's the one that you're expecting me to react to, right? So
yeah, Oakley disagrees,
well,
but
I bow,
he
I bow to his wisdom.
yeah, but he's a Blue Beetle stand. Yeah, he's a Blue Beetle stand. So
I see what you're getting at, like being encased in the ice. I'm sure there's some like hypersonic like vibration or something that the
or
suit
even
can
just
let
like his
out,
sonic
and
ray, like or what? Not sonic ray,
the sonic
like the gun.
the
Like,
gun,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he does have that it's not the energy gun, it's like the sound waves or something, right? So
Sonic gun.
Just
yeah.
shattering.
yeah,
The
sonic gun.
It shoots hedgehogs.
I was like Sonic. Oh.
Sonic. Oh no. It's not fast enough for this one.
Whoa! Every time.
So that is going to round out our 3 rounds, which means it's time for final judgment.
Final judgment. I have to do it.
Dun.
Dun.
So, Carson,
You spoke up first. Yeah.
I'm going to put you on. Yeah.
I can't. Someone else go.
Oh,
The smoke from Todoroki's fire is getting
Yeah, no. I
I'm
can't
going to
see.
put you on the chopping block here.
All right. chop away, buddy. This is tough. This is a little less clear cut, and I wouldn't be surprised if we were split here. But I think what I come down to is I would pick Blue Beetle in like a death match, but with the specific rules of like the sumo, you can win by like getting him out of bounds. I think Todoroki just has such control over the space that I think I'm going to go Todoroki.
Oh boy. Interesting. I think I'm going to go next, by the way, if that's okay.
Josh,
By
you're
all
on the
means.
chopping block.
Yeah.
Carson said it. I got to go. I find this interesting because, again, we've done a lot of anime characters, and we always have this issue with, like, they're so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, you get to describe it, and you're
that,
like, man,
yeah.
this is, like, not even a contest. I think we found a character that is comparable to anime.
I think we're finding
Yeah.
that more and more. We're finding that comic book characters can be on the same level as anime.
Having said that, I got to go Blue Beetle. I think we always talk about tactics. I think the tactful mindset, the fact that the AI can learn as it fights, and the fact I didn't bring this up, so this is kind of shitty for me to be like, oh, by the way, like this
No, throw it
ultimate
out.
attack.
Jury, close your ears.
We'll listen, but we can't accept it,
I'm going to go Blue Beetle regardless,
Yeah.
but
which is why I'm telling you.
the AI, the stuff that he can create, like his blades and his guns and stuff, are only limited to his imagination. So he can literally conjure anything up that he could think of.
Yeah.
Which is similar to like
Okay.
Beast Boy abilities, which is like
Green
he can turn
Lantern?
Like Green
into-
Lantern.
I was like,
is what
I think you missed the
thinking.
obvious one of Green Lantern.
Well,
But that's interesting. I did think that it was like a specific set that like came
Yeah.
with the Scarab.
yeah, which is funny because Green Lantern is like one of the Scarab's only weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I gotta go Jaime, and Jim, I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah, so this is
No pressure.
We just talked about how like comic book characters, and we've come up with a good formula for this. Comic book characters can be on the same level of anime. I don't think that's the case here, and my reasoning for it is because of the contention between the Scarab and Jaime.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
only
Them
thing
not
that's going to
being
be
on the same page is
correct.
huge, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
That is going to be that's the defining thing for me. That is
So-
why I think Todoroki would win this, is because he
you-
doesn't have to deal with that.
Do you think that if Jaime surrendered control to the Scarab, you might go Blue Beetle? Like if it was just like versus the Scarab running everything?
I would
No.
say no, because at that point the Scarab would just murder Todoroki.
Yeah.
and then drop his lifeless corpse out of
Yeah,
bounds.
yeah. But no, like I don't know. That's
After being
so
disqualified.
tough because I mean Jaime has a great opportunity in this. He has such a good chance. Like this is like Todoroki's not coming out unscathed for sure.
Right.
But I don't think that Jaime would ever just surrender control. You know what I mean? Even
Yeah.
if in the case of a death match,
No.
I think Jaime is just going to overcome that. But with just that contention point,
I think
it's
he
just such a
knows what
huge
the
thing.
Scarab is capable of, and he
He's
doesn't want
afraid.
that to happen.
Correct.
right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So I think
Good guy,
I don't think that there would
Jaime.
ever be that case where, unfortunately, I don't think Jaime
What a chap.
can win this one. Yeah. So it was tough for me too because Jaime has such a great
That's okay.
opportunity to win here, and I wanted him. I was on his side for a while.
Because of El Paso, right?
Yeah. Huh?
Solely El Paso, Texas.
That's what it is.
Not his abilities. That's okay. I am totally happy dying on this hill. I still feel like it is super situational. I feel like,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
said, any mistake, every second counts in this fight. Any misstep
We
could have
haven't
gone
had
either
one of
way.
these in a while.
Well, it's
Yeah,
cool.
we've
It's
had
cool
some-
after 2 weeks
well-
of being unanimous. It's nice to have a little
Yeah.
discord.
I just meant like this much of a of a fight really where
Yeah.
like these two
Yeah.
are really going toe to toe and it's going to be probably one of the most
To
exciting
me, like
fights ever.
one
Todoroki.
is not beating the crap out of the other one,
Correct.
like relentlessly.
or even then where it's like no, like this fight literally comes down to seconds matter because like
Yeah.
like I said, that moment that Todoroki encases him
Yeah.
gives him like 2 seconds to come up with the strategy for what to do next.
I am still impressed that Blue Beetle is able to put that much work and be toe to toe with an anime character.
Absolutely.
Well, that is
Join us next week when their girlfriends fight each other.
They're classmates.
the pink beetle. And
The pink beetle. Oh my
It's
god.
Power Rangers.
So with that, we are going to round out this episode. We want to thank you for joining us, but we do want to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and head over to the CFN Fan Stand group, where we'll be posting a picture of the fight and a poll so you can argue your point and tell Jim and Carson why they were wrong.
I love
about
seeing that one poll go really strong peach and just being like, oh.
I even Kyle was like, why?
Tell us.
Nobody told me. But but that's going to do it for us here at the CFN Arena. We will see you in the next episode. For Jim, Carson, and myself, of course, this has been CFN Recharged. We'll see you next time. And remember, let your characters do the fighting for you. See ya.
Want more fights? Follow us on social media, Instagram and Twitter @CharacterFight and Character Fight Night on Facebook. Use hashtag #FollowTheFight on all social media platforms. Want more action? Join the Character Fight Night Fan Stand Facebook group, where we post polls and have discussions on all fights.